Today, we will be discussing how symbolism is used in Percy Bysshe Shelley's Ozymandias. Percy Shelley wrote it in 1818, during the Romantic era. The Romantic era was when writers reacted to scientific reasoning and saw the creation of art as an almost supernatural ability. These writers believed that reaching for unattainable ideals, such as intellectual freedom and perfect love, was the purpose of art and celebrated the individuality of creativity. The poem itself gets its title from the Greek word for pharaoh and is full of symbolism. We're going to consider some of the possible interpretations, but there is no one right answer in poetry. It's all about feeling. Remember, as you read this piece, that it is a sonnet, a form of poetry with 14 lines written in iambic pentameter, a rhyming pattern, but it doesn't follow the standard rhyming rules, and some people think that this change from this pattern is supposed to imitate the desert landscape where the sands are constantly moving. And one other rule break we will discuss at the end. Let's read this poem together. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that sculptor well those passions red, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains, round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." To put it simply, symbolism is the concept of ideas being represented through other things. On the surface, the poem is about a man who hears the story of a traveler who found the remains of a statue in the desert. The ruin is surrounded by desert for miles, but there are words on the base of the statue that declare he was a ruler of a vast and powerful kingdom. By Shelley's description, we can imagine the desert, the statue, and the lost world where Ozymandias was king. That's what the poem talks about on its face. But what are the symbols in the poem, and what do they mean? I'd say the biggest use of symbolism is the statue itself. The statue is now shattered and half buried in sand. To me, the fact that the legs remain standing are a sign that his kingdom was one built on tyranny and oppression. The head, on the other hand, is shattered, with only a frown and a sneering mouth visible. Does that suggest a wise ruler good to his people, or a cold and self-centered man? All we know about him are the remains of his statue and the words at the base. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Of all the power and strength, the poem tells us nothing beside remains, and the lone and level sands stretch far away. Your job is to determine if Ozymandias was wise or cold during his rule, and take your opinion from your feeling when you read the poem. There is no one answer, it's only about how the poem makes you feel. The best poetry takes you away and allows you to think with your feelings. You'll post this in a discussion entry with a minimum of 120 words explaining why you feel the way you do, and what would have happened if Ozymandias had ruled his kingdom another way. Please use a minimum of 2 relevant sources to back up your ideas, not including the poem. Remember I told you that this poem breaks another rule of the sonnet? The intention of the poet was to break this rule because Ozymandias himself is no longer controlling anything now that his kingdom is gone. So the poet chose to break the sonnet rules to show that nothing lasts forever.
The time for honoring yourself will soon be at an end. Highness.
Think about that.